So guys, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be reviewing in depth the brand new flagship rackets from Nordic Dots, the Model 98S and the Model 98 Pro. So both of these rackets are at exactly the same tension, 55 pounds, with Nordic Dots control string, my favorite string out of the full range that Nordic Dots produce. It's a little bit stiffer, I feel like it grips the ball a little bit more, and it just gives me that little bit of control as I can generate my own power. Nordic Dots do offer an alternative, which is the power string. If you're looking for a bit more pop, a bit more power, probably a bit more spin, then that would be a great choice for you. So when the racket comes out of the factory, it comes with the exact weight of the frame, the balance of the frame, and then also the swing weight. This is really important because nowadays customization is becoming a lot more popular. So if you want to match your rackets, you already know the specs. So it saves you a lot of work. So let's just break the rackets down a little bit before we get into the play test. So this is the Model 98 Spin. It's got a 98 square inch head size, 16-19 string pattern. It's 305 grams in weight. It's got a slightly lighter head to allow for that faster racket head speed, really getting up the back of the ball, generating that spin. And then it's also got an RA rating of 72. So it's actually a pretty stiff frame. This is classic of Nordic Dots, more stability. I find that when I'm moving out the corners, these rackets are fantastic because they offer you that little bit of strength without adding more weight. And this is the Model 98 Pro. So it's got a 98 square inch head size, 18-19 string pattern, and it's 310 grams in weight. So it's exactly the same head size and beam width as the Model 98 Spin. Slight difference in a tighter string bed, allowing for more control, and then a little bit more weight for a little bit more plow through. In my opinion, just looking at these frames, I can see that this is going to suit players who like to play close to the baseline, like to move forward to the net, more of the all-court player. And the Model 98S, I'm thinking, is going to be for more the aggressive baseliner, but I guess we're going to find out. So let's get into the play test. So first up, we've got the Model 98S, which is the spin version of the Model 98. And yeah, straight away, I can definitely feel that spin element to the frame. I mean, it's got a slightly lighter swing weight, so you can really feel that racket head speed just getting up the back of the ball really nicely there. What I like about the Nordic Dots rackets, like I've said before, is that element of stability. So whenever you moved out wide, it just doesn't feel like the racket shakes. So I'm able to get quite a lot of depth on the ball there pretty consistently. I'm not really losing any power, to be honest. So as a player, what this gives me is confidence, because I know that every time I can commit to the ball with a fast, loose hand, and I'm able to generate the spin to bring the ball back into the court. So I don't feel like it's the heaviest ball I've ever hit, but it's definitely consistent and really solid. Yeah, so what I like about the stability of the frame is it's very stable, but it's not heavy. So still very maneuverable. You can really get that racket head speed on the ball. Sorry. But you still get enough through it at the same time. Again, those wide balls, oh, that was a bit too wide for me. But again, those wide balls, really getting the stability on the run where you need it most, to be honest. And then when those balls coming in quicker as well on the baseline, it's still maneuverable enough for me to move the racket quickly and control it as well. The more spin you can generate, the more control you have over the ball. So I think that the power element of this racket is high. You know, the stability is very good, but I also feel like the control is very good as well, purely for the fact that, you know, you're able to generate loads of spin. If you can't generate loads of spin, I can see this being a little bit tricky and you might have to adjust a little bit. But for those guys who are, you know, aggressive baseliners, you know, they like to play a lot from the baseline, heavy ground strokes, then this is a great racket for you. But also players who like to keep the weight of the racket down and still feel a lot of stability, I feel like is going to be super important as well. It's quite interesting actually, the sweet spot on this racket feels pretty big. It's actually very similar to the Nordicdots Model 100, which is something that I wasn't really expecting. I was expecting it to feel a little bit more like the sweet spot was smaller, but it actually feels pretty big. Oh yeah, drive volleys from the baseline, working a treat. So what I like about this frame is how easy it is to get the depth. Barely even have to try, because I can just aim at a certain height above the net, and because of the spin factor, just brings the ball back in. It's actually crazy. I'd compare this to the Aero 98 in feeling. You're able to generate a load of spin. It's a little bit stiffer, but you know, sacrificing that slight bit of comfort is a huge payoff in terms of performance. You know, the spin that you're able to generate, power through the ball, and then also the maneuverability. Yeah, I mean, it's not as stiff as the Aero. I can definitely feel it in my arm that, you know, the stiffness wouldn't be a problem when it came to like injury. I genuinely don't think I could use the Aero 98 because it is so stiff. I'd have to couple it with a really soft string, which is something that I wouldn't want to do. But with this, I feel like you can still put a stiff string in and you'll still be fine because it is that little bit more comfortable. Sorry, I'm out of breath. It's really hard to speak and hit balls at the same time, but we grind. What I'm feeling with this frame is that it's going to be suitable for, you know, the vast majority of players. You know, this is a really kind of modern setup, 98 square inch, 16-19 string pattern with, you know, a pretty light racket in terms of overall weight and swing weight. So I think that, you know, a lot of players are going to find quite a lot of comfort in this racket and also a very high performance. So now we're going to see what it's got from the net. Obviously, typically this type of frame is going to be better for players who like to play the baseline, but you know, the modern game, you've got to be able to play from everywhere. So let's see how it performs. Here we go. So I'm going to start from behind the service line, just to make sure I really test, you know, the control element out of this frame, really put my volleys through their paces a little bit. That's quite crisp actually. Just need to adjust the direction a little bit. It's like similar from the baseline actually. I'm getting pretty effortless depth from the frame. It's quite lively. So comparing it to something like the Head Extreme, which was my racket of choice for, you know, nearly 6 months, it's definitely not as comfortable as something like that, but it's definitely, you know, more precise and more direct. Like I say about the stability element, you know, it's a very stiff frame, so the closer you move towards the net, the better it's gonna perform, really. You know, even though the strengths of this racket are more from the baseline. So, time for the Model 98 Pro. Picking this racket up, I can feel the immediate shift in the swing weight. There's definitely, you know, a little bit more weight in the head, slightly heavier. I feel like this racket is gonna suit a lot of areas of my game, especially playing close to the baseline, playing flatter through the ball. I can really feel already that my, you know, backhand is gonna be a little bit more of a weapon with this thing. So yeah, straight away the ball flight is a lot more direct. There's a lot more weight going through the ball. It's a lot flatter, having to work a little bit harder with my hand to generate a little bit more speed. That's something that the Model 98S did really well. Just generate that speed pretty effortlessly. But what I'm getting rewarded with here is when I want to hit through the ball more, do more damage, it's so much easier. And you can see it, how much flatter the ball is going over the net. It's just the natural shape of the ball. Whew, I mean, that's going to happen a little bit more because, you know, it's harder to get up the back of the ball a little bit. But obviously I'll adjust to it, I'll get better. You know, with the Model 98, it took me a good 10 or 15 minutes to really get used to it. So I'm going to give this a little bit of time and produce something from the baseline. I mean, the slice is pretty sweet, to be honest. I'd prefer to slice with this than the Model 98S. Give this one a go. Also makes my legs move quicker as well. But yeah, there's definitely more plow through on this frame. Look at the height of the ball over the net. It's so much more direct. It's actually a little bit harder to maneuver around the baseline. Like, it's, you know, harder to kind of whip up the back of the ball, but like I say, that weight means that you often don't have to. You can almost just nudge it back into play and the ball will just go. I mean, it's very interesting. You might not be able to tell a massive difference in the ball flight, but there's a big difference in the feeling and what I'm able to do. It felt a lot harder to flatten the ball out with the 98S, and this is far easier. Yeah, it's actually not too bad with the spin generation. Obviously it's a tighter string bed, 18, 19, which I much prefer to an 18-20 actually. Yeah, and I actually expected this racket to feel a lot more unforgiving, you know, with the 18-19 string pattern. You know, I thought that maybe it would feel like the sweet spot is smaller, but there's actually not a huge difference at all. So the difference between the two rackets at the minute, obviously you'd expect the 98S to be, you know, more spin friendly, more powerful, a bit more poppy, and then the Model 98 Pro to be, you know, more control orientated, more, you know, plow through on the ball, a little bit less pop. But the differences are actually quite subtle. That's what I'm feeling. And I'm so glad that I chose the same string at the same tension, because, you know, obviously that's a massive factor. Obviously I'm using the same grips as well, using the Nordicdots, I think the Extra Comfort. I'll attach a link below to those in the description, because I think they're also fantastic grips for the price as well. Similar to something like a Wilson Pro overgrip. Obviously they don't last very long either. But yeah, like I was saying with the rackets, you know, there's a very subtle difference in what they give you, and I feel like they're both very specific to the type of player that they're aimed at, really. So Model 98 Pro at the net, this is the area where I feel this racket is really gonna come into its own. Yeah, already it's pretty crisp actually. Not having to try too hard to get a lot of pop on the volleys or control the ball actually. It's more just point and shoot. Yeah, it definitely rewards you if, you know, you come forward to the net, you volley well, very easy to use at the net. You know, it really accentuates on the volley less is more, because all you have to do is get the ball onto the strings at the right angle, and the racket really rewards you. Yeah, if you're an all-court player, I'd definitely recommend having a spin on the Model 98 Pro. So I'm going to put these rackets through their paces, hit a load of serves with them, and play a load of points. So let's get into it. So first up is the Model 98 Pro. I think that this is going to definitely suit my first serve a lot more. I think the plow through, the weight through the ball is going to be really effective, but there's only one way to find out. Not a bad way to start. Yeah, I mean, the first serve's pretty heavy with this. The ball's definitely a little bit more direct. There's not as much spin being generated, but I mean, this racket just suits the player who loves to stay up on the baseline, play aggressive, play early, hit big first serves. The one thing that I'm finding more difficult with this racket is hitting kick serves, but I know I'm playing on indoor carpet, and generally my kick serve isn't massive anyway, so there's two factors, you know, kind of working against me there. But my flat serves and even the serves with a little bit more spin on the first serves are really effective. Body serves on the second are really good. Yeah, I mean, there's so much control when you're up on the baseline to just keep committing and hitting through the ball. It's the one racket that I'd compare it to that's really similar to this is actually the Technofiber T-Fight 305. I did a review on that a couple of weeks ago, and it's got the same specs, but for me, the Technofiber doesn't have anywhere near as much weight through the ball or stability. So it felt a little bit lightweight, and you actually needed to add a bit to it to, you know, make it feel like you can hit through the ball a little bit easier. Hey. Vamos. It's pretty good, isn't it? It's not bad. So now we're going to switch to the Model 98S and see how it performs in the points. So just a quick little review of the serve points. Behind my first serve, this thing was a weapon. I mean, power wasn't really an issue because, again, there's so much weight behind the racket, there's so much stability that, you know, when I'm throwing up the ball, even if it's slightly off center, I'm still getting, you know, enough behind it. Some rackets, you throw it up, you hit it a little bit off center, and it feels like the racket just wobbles in your hand. It's, you know, it's not the case with this, but, you know, again, I feel like this is a made for, you know, slightly more aggressive players who like to move forward, use their volleys, you know, play with probably a little bit shorter swings, a little bit more punchy, a little bit flatter. So, yeah, I was very impressed with this from the baseline, especially, you know, playing indoors on the quicker surface, gaining more control, you know, being able to commit through the ball and not having to worry about it going long, you know, being able to hit through it and not feeling like I have to, you know, rip up the back of it and give it, you know, loads of spin. But yeah, very happy with the Model 98 Pro. I think that so far, this is definitely the racket that suits my game the most. But we'll see how the Model 98S performs. And serve is So there's definitely a lot more pop behind my second serve with this racket. You know, my first serve I don't feel is as accurate, but I feel like my second serve, you know, there's loads more strength in it, there's loads more spin, more racket head speed. Yeah, I mean, I know that's like a pretty ridiculous shot, but because it's more maneuverable, it allows me to work with my wrist a little bit more, you know, really get some action on the ball. And as you can see, the ball flight is completely different because it just allows you to hit like that. You know, for me, the ball doesn't feel as heavy from the baseline with the spin frame, you know, as it does the Model 98 Pro. But again, I'm giving myself more time on surfaces where the damage is going to be done with height and shape, spin, angles, you know, like clay or slow outdoor hard. I really feel like this is where the racket's going to come into its own. Obviously at the minute, I'm favoring the 98 Pro because I think we're indoors, that style really works well, you know, just like staying on the baseline, deflecting, you know, getting a lot of control and weight through the ball is obviously super effective. But at the minute, because, you know, I'm playing on the carpet, I can't really get the ball up. I could see that outdoors, this racket is going to be far more effective. Okay, so I'm going to take a quick break, and I'm going to give you my honest thoughts on both frames. So for the last week, I've been doing an in-depth review into the two Model 98s, and what I've found is the Model 98S is definitely for the players who, you know, like to play from the baseline, like to play with more spin, looking for a little bit more comfort and possibly a little bit more pop. I feel like players who play on, you know, outdoor hard, maybe even clay courts, where the weapon is, you know, height, spin, heaviness of the ball, I feel like this racket definitely fits, you know, into that sort of category, into those conditions for that sort of player. And I also feel like there's no real limit on, you know, who this racket could be designed for. I feel like it fits pretty well into, you know, intermediates, advanced, maybe even pros. Whereas I feel like the 98 Pro fits into a slightly different category. For me, this is designed for advanced players, you know, with the weight of it, you know, the setup of the string bed. I feel like advanced players would really get along with this. And also the all-court playability of it. It performs equally well from pretty much all areas of the court, especially at the net where you get a lot of control and a lot of precision. And typically that's, you know, tied in with more advanced players. So I just think that what Nordic Dots have done is pretty cool. They've got pretty much, you know, nearly the same racket, but they play almost completely differently, and they're designed for two different, you know, groups of players. I think the big question that I probably need to answer is, if I was to choose one of these rackets, you know, if I had a tournament tomorrow and I had to pick one, which one would I go for? And I think, you know, it really is a tough decision because I did enjoy playing with both of them. Both of them suit the way that I play, but the one that I'm going to have to pick would probably be the Model 98S. Even though I really enjoyed playing with the Model 98 Pro, I just feel like this racket's going to help me out a little bit more. I feel like it's going to give me a little bit more pop, and then also if I'm going outdoors, it's going to give me a little bit more spin, a little bit more help. So I also think this is probably going to be more suitable for, you know, a wider audience of players. You know, the vast majority of players are probably going to, you know, gravitate towards this sort of frame. Whereas I think the Model 98 is definitely, you know, a little bit more niche. But again, they're different rackets and they do different jobs. So that's it for today. Hope you enjoyed the video. As ever, like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.